going to start demonstrating the techniques I would use in completing this assignment. So I came up with my idea. I'm gonna do a t-shirt design that involves a pug and makes the statement, "Don't hate me because I'm pugly." So I've got my pug picture, so I'm gonna start by opening up my photographic image that I brought. Project 4. Okay, so here's my pug. And if you look at your assignment, the top of the assignment talks about getting started with a letter size Photoshop document. So I'm going to also do that. I'm going to go File, New, or Command N, or Control N on Windows. And I'm going to choose the print preset, letter size. And then I'm going to go ahead and name this last name, followed by your first initial as it's specified at the bottom of your assignment. What you're going to name your design, last name, first initial dash Proj4 dash design. Proj4 dash design. And this can be orientation set up as portrait. 300 pixels per inch is good. You can leave it in RGB mode because Photoshop manages the colors for print if you did decide to print it. Background, I'm going to change the background on my design to transparent so that my design doesn't need to be stuck within a rectangular shape. So transparent, and then I'm going to click create so I can start creating here. I'm going to go to my sad pug image here that's tabbed with my project, and I'm going to use my quick select tool, and I could paint on the selection, but now since Photoshop has advanced in technology so far, I can have enhance edge checked, and I could just click the button from the control panel, the select subject button, and it does a pretty good job of just selecting my subject. It left out the whiskers, but I could actually go and get some of the whiskers at least with my select and mask option. So I'm going to click on select and mask, and I'm looking at my view now. Let's see what I'm looking at. I'm on black here. Just make sure I select on black so I can see the cutout of the pug, and I could see the edges are kind of crispy. So I want to use this tool, the Refine Edge tool, to soften those edges. I can use my bracket keys to make my brush larger or smaller, or I could use the brush settings here to change the size of the brush. And I'm using the Refine Edge brush, so I can just kind of draw on the edges and really bring out the fur details. Draw like along the edges of the fur and really soften the fur and bring out the little fur wisps to make the edges look much more natural. Even the whiskers can be brought out if you draw along where the whiskers would be. A little bit of those whiskers can come out there.
Well, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
How did you make it softer for the the selection tool, like not as outlined, like not like you just copied and pasted it. You get what I'm saying?
You mean how it started out with the edges looking like just like paper cutouts, and then how did I get the edges to be soft and show the like little wisps of fur?
Yeah.
The secret is getting into the select and mask dialog box, which is where I am right now, by clicking on that select and mask button at the top of the control panel when you're on when you're on a selection tool like the quick select tool. And then the real secret is using this tool here. This is called the Refine Edge Brush tool. And you just select that tool and you just draw along the edge, and it just brings to life all of that detail on the fur, on the edges. And if you go too far, you could, right now I'm in plus mode, but you can minus mode it and go back to the way things were. Like, see how I can draw over it and make it rough, like a paper cutout again, and then start again and add, go back to add mode. You can use, you can also use option to toggle into minus, and just be in add mode as default and just paint in there. So
options, there's the shortcut.
Yeah, option
plus and minus.
Yeah, option will do the opposite of what the Refine Edge tool does. If sometimes when you're using the Refine Edge tool, it makes weird glitches, and then you kind of want to go back to the way it was, so then you can hold option to minus the effect. And then you could try it again to see if you get better results. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with that, and it will just modify the selection, and I just click OK in the bottom corner, and it takes me out of my select and mask dialog box. But again, see, this is the button up here that I clicked on to get into that mode, select and mask. So now that I've refined the edges of my selection, I'm ready to use the move tool to drag my selection to my destination, which is my t-shirt design project document. So I'm going to drag it up and down and drop it in here to work with. Okay, so I'm just going to name this layer Pug Photo. It's obvious that it's a photo right now, but I could really alter it and make it look more like a drawing if I wanted to be part of this design with the filters. So I could go filter, and I could go to filter gallery, and I could go fit in view from the magnification drop down, and right now we're seeing one of the filters, we're seeing poster edges. So poster edges is cool. You can do all different types of filters. This is colored pencil. It uses, for colored pencil, it's using the background color. So if I wanted to have it look like colored pencil sketch all over my photo, I could choose a certain color for that. Cutout's kind of nice. Looks kind of like vector drawing more. Dry brush. It's a nice painterly quality. Any of these you can alter. Like I can alter the brush size and give it my own look. Texture. Maybe I'll start with cutout. And then I'll say OK. And then I can add another one. So when you add combinations of filters, that's a way to come up with a more unique look that no one's ever seen before. I'm gonna just do fit in view again. So I did like poster edges too, or dry brush. Cutout's what I used before, so I'm not going to double use it, but paint daubs, palette knife Kind of simplifies it. Plastic wrap. No, maybe not. Rough pastels. Poster edges. I guess I'll go with poster edges. You can adjust the edge thickness, edge intensity, posterization. Give it a range of different looks. And then I can say okay. So it's starting to give it a more of a drawn look. And then I want to make this dog look like he is a reflection in a mirror. So I'm gonna introduce you now to Photoshop shape tools to create Photoshop vectors, or you could use these tools to just create shapes filled with pixels. So the shape tools are down here. You might remember I also used the marquee tools to create shapes on layers. Rectangular marquee, elliptical marquee, and then I used the paint bucket or gradient to drop in pixels. So that's another drawing technique that's listed. But I'm gonna show you the Photoshop vectors. So here we have, just like in Illustrator, the rectangle tools on top, and then you've got all these different shape options to choose from. Even the line tool is here, and there's even a custom shape tool that's almost like using clip art, but it will give you lots of categories of ready-made shapes to choose from. That makes drawing easy. But I'm not going to use a ready-made shape because I like to try to come up with my own shape ideas with simpler shapes. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool and once you choose a shape, it's very important that you are aware of your options in the control panel, because the first option here you have is you have the choice between drawing out a shape layer. That's what the shape choice is, and a shape layer is a Photoshop vector. Or you have the choice to make just a path. It's a path, and you can choose to turn it into a shape layer or vector, or you could choose to turn it into marching ants and fill it with pixels. So with the path will not exist as a layer until you actually make a choice on what it's gonna end up as, vector or pixels. The path will exist in your paths panel. And then pixels will just give you immediate pixels. I tend to like to work with the shape layers because they're vectors, so I don't have to worry about losing resolution if I decide to make it to scale it up bigger. So I'm gonna go with shape. And then when you're on shape, you have the options like you do in Illustrator to choose fill and stroke. When you're on path, you have different options. You have the option to turn the path into a mask or a shape layer. And pixels, you just have these options here for opacity and alignment. I'm gonna go to shape. So with shape, I can make a fill. Also, you can check that out in the handout, the Photoshop shape vectors handout. These are the 3 choices that you'll have when you're on a shape tool. You'll be able to choose shape, path, or pixels. If you choose shape, you'll be making a shape layer like this. If you choose paths, you'll be making a work path that's going to be listed not in the layers panel but in the paths panel. And then pixels, you make a shape that's just pixels, filled with pixels. So I'm going to choose shape, and then I have fill option, so I can click on not the word fill but the color swatch there, And then it will give me choices to use solid color swatches, which it gives you a bunch of categories of swatches, or gradient. It gives you some gradients that you can choose from, or you can create your own gradient. Start with maybe a custom gradient and change it. You can change the gradient type, like I could go linear, radial, or reflected. I could even choose to put a pattern in my shape. I think I'm gonna go with gradient, and I'll choose this gradient, reflected. Oh, and you can also choose your own colors here with this button. You can get to the color picker and choose your own color. Like if I wanted green, then it will add the color that you chose recently to the recently used colors that you can choose from here. I'll go with gradient, and then I can use my ellipse tool and draw out a shape layer. And at any time I should be able to change things. Like if I didn't like the way the gradient looked, I could click on the fill option and make some changes. See, I can drag these around, change them, change the color. If I want this color stop to be a different color, I can double click on it, and then I'm in my color picker. I can choose a different color for it, which is nice. You can also change the color by double clicking on the layer thumbnail. So you see, this is the layer thumbnail for the vector layer. It has a little representation of a vector shape with anchor points. Double click. You can double click and then have the controls here to change the color as well. You can change the angle of the gradient, or click here and adjust the colors just by double clicking on the layer thumbnail. Alright, and I can change while I'm still on the shape tool, I can change the size and shape. But what I want to do is I want to get this dog to look like it's a reflection in this, like the dog is part of this, inside of this as a mirror reflection. So I'll just call this ellipse mirror glass, and I want to put the dog layer above the mirror glass layer, and I want to use a Photoshop clipping mask to make the dog go inside of the shape. So to make a Photoshop clipping mask, you just hover between the two layers. You hold down the Option key. If you're on a Mac, it's Option. If you're on Windows, it's Alt. You just hover between the two layers. You'll see a box with a downward arrow, and you Option click or Alt click between the layers, right on the line between the layers. Now the dog is inside. The show is revealing inside of the mirror glass. And I could still select the dog. If I wanted to make the dog a little smaller, I could hit Command T and scale the dog. Because the dog is a layer made of pixels, the new way that Photoshop works is you don't have to hold Shift to scale proportionally. So you just scale it, and it scales height and width proportionally without holding Shift on pixels. Then I'm going to press Return to apply that transformation. And then I want to start drawing out the shape of like a mirror glass. I can use my Move tool to drag a marquee which selects both layers, and I can move these together. And then I want to go back to my ellipse tool and draw out another ellipse as a shape layer. Maybe this time I'm going to deselect everything by using my move tool to click outside. That deselects my layers. Then I'm going to take my ellipse tool again and choose a different fill, maybe a solid color this time. Maybe this dark color, darker, well, this isn't dark enough. Let's see, maybe I'll choose a new color, like a dark green color maybe, darker green. And I'm going to click and drag and draw out an ellipse and adjust the size. And I want to put it under the mirror glass so I can see. And I can also use, because this is a vector, I can also use this tool, the path selection tool. It's just like the selection tool in Illustrator. There's the path selection tool here if you click and hold on the tool, and there's the direct selection tool, your old friends from Illustrator. So this tool is great for selecting Photoshop vectors and altering them, like changing the size. So that's going to be my mirror shape, and maybe I need to maybe make it a little smaller. Maybe a little bigger. Can zoom in with Command plus so that I can adjust at finer increments, I should say. And then I think I'm going to need to select all of these layers again. I can click on the top, hold shift, click on the bottom, and use my move tool and hit. Actually, let me try with my path selection tool. I don't think this will work though. If I were to scale with my path selection tool, it's not going to scale the dog. It's just going to scale the vectors. So I'm not going to do that. I'll go to my move tool and use Command T and then try scaling. Oh, it's still not scaling the dog. Let me undo that. Let's see. There was a way. Oh, I guess if I put it in a folder, but I'll do that later. Okay, I'm gonna do this other thing now. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to build onto this ellipse and add shapes to it instead of making a brand new shape. So instead of making a brand new layer. So let's say I want to add another ellipse. So I click on the ellipse, and I need to be aware in my control panel of a drop down button here called path operations. So when you're on new layer and you draw out a new shape, that's what it's gonna do. It's gonna make a new layer. So it just made this new layer called ellipse. If I want to add to an existing shape layer with another shape, let me just delete this. I can have that shape selected, select the shape tool, and then instead of being on new layer, I can choose combine shapes and then draw out another shape. And that's helpful. Then I can use my path selection tool. Notice how it didn't make a separate layer that time. It added to the existing ellipse layer. That's helpful because if you wanted to align shapes to each other, you could, as long as you have the shapes all on the same layer. Then I can select multiple shapes and use the drop down here, the alignment drop down, and do align to canvas or align to selection. But if I was trying to align, for example, this ellipse with the mirror glass, let's see if I can select the mirror glass. It's not letting me. Let's see. mirror glass. See, mirror glass. I'll select them this way by the layers. Then notice, because the mirror glass and the ellipse one are on two separate layers, funny enough, the align options are grayed out for aligning them together. I might be able to do it with the move tool, just selecting the layers, ellipse one and mirror glass. Yeah, I could with the move tool, I can have them align to each other, horizontal line centers, like this. So those are aligning. But then if I was using my path selection tool and I'm selecting, and I want to, let me just click outside here to deselect. I want to select the ellipse here, and then I want to make sure that, let's see, I select each one of these shapes. Got to select on the path. Then I can choose the drop down here on my align options for aligning paths within a shape layer, and I can use this one here, align horizontal centers. So now the shape jumps to line up with the little ellipse jump to line up with the big ellipse. Let me just nudge it up with my arrow keys and then continue to draw my mirror handle here. So next I want to try adding another shape, maybe with the pen tool. So I'm going to choose my pen tool. I'm going to choose shape. So I'm drawing out a shape layer, and I want to try choosing this. Last night this didn't work well, but I'm going to see if I can choose combine shapes and see if I drew with the pen tool, if I drew a shape with the pen tool. No, with the pen tool it's making me draw on a separate layer, but that's okay. There's a workaround that I can fix here. Okay, so just like in Illustrator, we can draw out vectors with the pen tool. So I'm gonna draw a shape. Maybe I'll hold Option here and make another little funny looking shape here, and then come down here, click and drag. Come down here, click and drag to make a curve. Click and close my shape. Actually, maybe this is too much, so I can get rid of these points by hovering over them. Oop. And then use my direct selection tool to select points and make alterations. To the shape. So I want to do kind of like this half shape for the bottom of the handle of the mirror, and I want to combine it. I want to duplicate it and combine it so it's a symmetrical shape. Okay, so I'm going to just use my path selection tool, select it, and I can Option drag out a duplicate. I can hit Command T, right click the duplicate and choose flip horizontal, and then I could put the two together. Let's see, let me just check mark that to make it apply, and I can use my direct selection tool again and just kind of line up the points together. And we don't have Pathfinder to combine shapes in Photoshop, but we have Path Operations that does a lot of what Pathfinder does. So if I want to combine these two shapes into one, then I can select them This one's selected. I can hold shift and select this one. So these two shapes are now selected, and then I can go to my path operations, and at the very bottom I can choose merge shape components, and that'll merge these two separate shapes into one. So it cleans up the extra paths that we don't need. And then I think I want to select everything and see if I can transform it. So last time I was able to select all my layers, clicking on the top, holding shift, clicking on the bottom, and then I can click on this folder icon here, the bottom of the layer panel, and I'll just call this mirror. And now I can select that folder, and I could use Command T, and I should be able to scale things down altogether. Yeah, and that's also scaling the dog image, and I don't need to hold shift. It's scaling everything proportionally without holding shift. So now I have a little more room. Whoops. Now I ended up deselecting and applying it by accidentally clicking outside somehow. I can flip open my folder again and still have access to edit the individual shapes, but not with my path selection here. With my move tool, I can move the dog around, and with my path selection tool, I can select on the ellipse. Well, I have to select the ellipse first, or the shape. If I wanted this shape to be on the same layer as the ellipse, I could still select with my path selection tool and cut it. So I could just do edit, cut, or Command X on a Mac, Control X on Windows, and then I can, while I have my ellipse shape layer highlighted, I can paste, Command V, edit, paste. So it pastes it on the same layer. So now that's helpful, because then I can align all three of these shapes within the same shape layer. I'm just going to name this, instead of ellipse, this is mirror. This is the mirror. I'll just call it mirror frame and handle or something. And then I can select just this one shape, hit Command T, and I can scale it how I want to scale it. If I want it longer, it's scaling, it looks like it's scaling proportionally. If I want to scale disproportionately, I can hold shift. And then I can click the check mark to apply that. So if I want to, then I can select the first ellipse, the second ellipse, holding shift and clicking, and just make sure that all three of these ellipses are aligned. Because if I, let me make it so that they're not aligned. So if this one is over here, and this one is over here, and this one is where it's at, I'm going to select all three of these, and then use my align drop down and choose horizontal, align horizontal centers. So everything lines up nicely. But maybe I still want to nudge that part. Not that part. I want to nudge this little ellipse up a little so I can select it, use my arrow keys. There. Okay. This one looks a little bit fat to me at the bottom, so I'm just going to see if I can use my arrow key to nudge that point over. 1, 2, 3. And this one to make it even. 1, 2, 3 with my arrow keys. Maybe this one, 1, 2, 3. And this one, 1, 2, 3. So it's even. Okay. Alright, so next I want to incorporate some drawing with my, well, no, before I incorporate drawing, I'm going to go ahead and on this shape, I could merge everything so that it's one shape now. So, because right now it's 3 shapes. So I can select each one of these again, each one of these little shapes on this shape layer. And then I can go to my path operations and merge everything so that it's all one shape. It'll give me this message that says this operation will turn a live shape into a regular path. Continue. I'll say yes, so it's all merged into one shape. And that just makes it cleaner because I want to put a layer style on it now and not have any little seams showing. So you can put a layer style on a layer by clicking on the FX button and choosing from a list of layer styles here, like bevel and emboss, drop shadow, glows, or you can double click on the layer outside of the name and it'll bring up the layer style panel, and then you can go down the list and add different layer styles that you want to add. Like I want to add bevel and emboss, so I can click on bevel and emboss. And then it's gonna check mark it on and give me the menu because I clicked on it to select it. And right now it's on inner bevel. I can choose outer bevel or different options here for style and emboss. But I think I like inner bevel. And I can choose the technique to chisel smooth or chisel hard or chisel soft. And it will change how it's sculpting the edges. I'm going to leave it on smooth. Then I can increase the depth of the bevel or decrease the depth. See the difference? It's with more depth, it's giving me a bigger edge, showing the shadow and the highlight on the edge that's making it pop. You can change the direction up or down. I'm going to keep it up. The size of the bevel can be altered. You can adjust the soften amount. That's way down, so it has more of a hard edge. Or up. And you can change the angle of the shading by dragging this little dial around and kind of right now it's on oh, I wanted to also mention that use global light is checked. So if I chose something like if I turned on something like drop shadow, let me just go to drop shadow down here at the bottom, and I'm gonna just increase my drop shadow and the distance so you can see, and the spread of the drop shadow and the size of the drop shadow. Spread and size work together, so when you increase the spread, you're increasing the area of the drop shadow, and if the size is behind this is lower than the spread, then the drop shadow has a harder edge to it. If you have the size go out past the spread or even with the spread, it's gonna really soften the edge of the drop shadow. But notice use global light is checked on drop shadow as well. So that's an option that will go across all the options, so that, see, the shadow is on the same size. Sorry, the shadow is on the same side as the shadow is on the bevel. So as I change the angle of where the shadow is, it's also going to change the angle on the bevel because use global light is checked, which makes it look more realistic to have that option checked. So I might keep drop shadow, I might not keep drop shadow. If I want to turn off a layer style, I can just uncheck it, and now there's no drop shadow. I can go back to bevel and emboss and continue to work with it. You can change the gloss contour here. It's set to this curve, but if I put it on the straight one, it's gonna retain more of the original color. Or you can do different gloss contours of how the light is falling on the object. Or you could also click here on the gloss contour icon and do your own adjustment. So you can lighten it up by lifting this curve up and make my own gloss contour. Say okay. And then I could turn on contour as well. Contour is how the edges are sculpted. So again, they have some presets here that are it's actually changing the edge of the bevel. Or I could leave it the way it is. Texture, you can click texture on and then choose from the patterns that are here. And this is where if you do a custom pattern, you would have the option to use your own pattern. So this pattern at the end here, this is my Illustrator from my Illustrator pattern design, this one. I can adjust the scale on it. The depth. So there's a little pattern in there, or texture in there. I can uncheck texture if I don't want it. Keep it smooth. Stroke can be turned on. You can add a stroke. Change the opacity of the stroke, change the size of the stroke, change the color of the stroke. Now it has a big bright pink stroke on it. It's centered, or you could do outside or inside. Oh wow, that's kind of cool. With the stroke on the inside, it gives it another layer of color on the edge. That's kind of fun. Or I could turn it off if I don't want it. Now I'm thinking maybe I like that. Inner shadow can also be turned on. Let me turn off the stroke so you can see the inner shadow. There's now an inner shadow that can be adjusted. The distance. The color of the inner shadow can be adjusted. Maybe. And how it's blending can be adjusted. It gives it a little, I made my shadow purple with a little purple edge now, blending with the color. Or I can do an inner glow and choose the color of the glow. And the choke and the size are kind of like the spread and the size, how far the glow goes in. And you can always add noise, which creates a speckling effect. Or bring the noise down to smooth it out. Where I can uncheck inner glow. Satin, it adds some blotches of color that you can adjust in different ways. Then there's color overlay. If you change your mind and you want to override the original color, you can choose a completely different color. And now I have a blue mirror. With the blending mode, different blending modes will have different effects. You can choose different blending modes. Now it's a blue mirror, but I could just uncheck color overlay. You could also do a gradient overlay and adjust the gradient. This gradient here is set to have some opacity stop so that it's blending with the original color. But you have gradient controls here. You can do a pattern overlay, which is a bit different than the texture under bevel. The texture option was actually carving texture into the object. This pattern overlay is just putting the texture as an image on top. And again, if you choose, let's see, you can, if you do your custom pattern, you can choose something that you can use what you created in Illustrator to make a custom pattern and choose that, and it will show up. And then you can change the scale. So this is one I did in Illustrator, showing through there. It's kind of fun. Okay, and outer glow, you can turn on outer glow. Can't really see the outer glow. Let's see if I increase the size and spread. Let's see if I change the color to something that's more noticeable. Then you can see it. The outer glow, it's got a lot of noise on it. If I bring the noise down, it'll soften it. Or uncheck if I don't want outer glow. Maybe I want drop shadow. So I put the drop shadow on. I can adjust the distance, make it more subtle, adjust the spread, opacity, and okay. Then on the mirror glass, I think I want to do a pillow emboss so that it looks more sunk in. So I'm going to select that, go to FX and choose bevel emboss and choose the pillow emboss. And then it has a nice sunk in look there. And I could adjust, and I'll just leave it like that. Or I could change the gloss contour. See, gloss contour. Like if I chose that curve there, that's kind of good for a mirror, but it's a little too hazy. This is nothing. Let's see. Maybe I liked what it was on. The different options for the gloss over it. I think that looks good. So say okay. And then now what I want to do is I want to make some mirror streaks. So I'm gonna do this by creating a separate layer, which I could just, have this layer be part of the clipping mask, which it is. Let's see if this were above. And then I wouldn't have to worry about going outside the lines, which is great. So I could take my paintbrush and choose a brush type. I could also go under window and bring up brush settings. And I think I'm going to go with this one that I have selected here, which is this flat blunt brush here. And I used brush pose and adjusted the tilt of this brush. And then I also turned on transfer, and I'm working with pen pressure so that I can use my pen to draw. So let me just switch my camera here and get my, let's see here, pen. Okay, so here we are. Maybe we need a little more light. And then if I paint, see how it's not going outside of the lines because it's within the clipping mask. But another way, let me just make this way. Another way I could do this, if I didn't want to work within the clipping mask, I'm just going to name this mirror streaks. So let's say I want to release it from the clipping mask. I can always hold Option, or if you're on Windows, Alt, and click. And now it's released. So now the paint is going outside of the lines. But what I could do is on the mirror glass, I can command click, or on Windows that would be control click, the layer thumbnail to load marching ants around that shape. And then I want to delete what came on the outside, so I'm gonna inverse select while I'm on the mirror streaks layer, and I'm just gonna press the delete key, and it's gonna delete everything that was on the edges. And then I can inverse select again, which is Shift Command I or Shift Control I on Windows. So the selection is just around that circle that I want to paint in. Then I'm on my mirror streaks layer, and then I'm gonna just continue to paint more mirror streaks, and it won't go outside the lines because it won't go outside the lines because I've got the marching ants on. And then the eraser could also be used, which I also set with the brush settings to work with. Let's see, maybe transfer can be on also with pen pressure controlling it. Or not. Let me see if I uncheck that, if I'll get more of a dramatic effect. So this is these are nice brushes for making mirror streaks. So now I'm erasing because I maybe went a little bit too much with the brush, so I'm just want to make it subtle. Okay, so that's my painting. Just very simple, and that gets the credit for painting in Photoshop as a drawing method. So I've got let me hit Command D to deselect. So I got all my 3 drawing methods. I got I drew with shape layers, and I made mirror streaks. Actually, I do have a custom pattern, but I'm gonna show you the process next time on how I did that. Oh, I did layer styles. So 3 drawing methods so far. I got layer styles in there. I drew with shape layers, and I drew the mirrors. The mirror streaks are done with the paintbrush. So I could say with the, I'm gonna just call this is the brush tool. Mirror streaks. So to get your credit, remember to label. So I'm going to say mirror streaks with brush tool. So putting a little label like that's going to ensure that you get your credit. Next, I think I'm going to just highlight, close up the folder, and then I can go to edit and then transform, and I can skew the whole thing or distort it or use perspective on it. Maybe I'll try skew it to make it look like it's kind of turned, rotated a little bit. Or maybe, let me try distort. And then rotate. So I can go edit, transform, rotate it a little bit. So I have some room for my text for this design. I'm going to press return. So my text, I'm going to just take my type tool. There's the type tool. And and type gives you yet another drawing method. Then I'm just going to click and type out. Let's see, where is my type? Don't. And I could go to the next line by pressing return. Don't hate me because I'm pugly. So I could do that. Then I can use the controls that are here in the control panel for type. Like I can choose a different font. I kind of like this font, but you should be able to actually, let me switch to my move tool and move it and adjust it, and then go back to my type tool, and then let's see if while I have my type layer selected and then I click the drop down for font, let's see if now it's going to give me a live preview of different fonts that I hover over. So I want a font that expresses the feeling of what is being said here. I think I kind of like the first one. I think the first one's the winner. Maybe this one, if I adjust some other options. If you want to adjust some other options, you can go to Window and bring up the character panel so it floats. So, well, it's not really floating, it's popping out here. If I want it to float, I can drag on it and let it drag on the name, let it float, and then I can adjust things, other options like the leading, the spacing between the lines can be adjusted. Like maybe this needs more spacing between the lines. Maybe this needs to be smaller. Whoops, I made it bigger. You can drag on the little icons for each of the character options like font size, and it will adjust the point value, or drag on the leading, which is the spacing between the lines. This one might work as the font. It's a little hard to fit it in here, but it could work. Don't hate me. Maybe me can go on the same line with hate. So I can delete the space. And you could play with the sizing so that certain words stand out over others. Maybe These words can be smaller. These will be 39. Don't can be bigger. Don't hate me. And pugly can be really big. Wait, don't is how big? Don't is 66. And the leading can be changed to bring it down. Or maybe me could be on its own line and hate can be bigger. Adjust the leading. Me could be bigger. Me is an important word. You want to think about what words are important to make them stand out over others. You can be on your move tool and be moving your text around and adjusting it, and then if you double click the text layer, then you'll be in your type tool, and then you can highlight a word by double clicking on the word. Maybe I'll make me smaller. Me is, let's see, 61. Then I'm can match me and be 61, so I can put in 61. And don't can be, I'll make it a little bigger. Don't can be 76, and let's see if pugly will look good at 76 as well. So they match. And then I can move this, oh, Command C, I guess I can't accidentally, let me just take it off of auto select so I can select my whole mirror folder, use my move tool to move this over, and then move the text over. Okay, and then you can also copy a layer style. Like if I go into my mirror folder here and I want to use the same effects or layer styles that are on the mirror handle as on the text, I can do that by option dragging effects up to the text layer. So I'll try that. It would be Alt on a Windows, drag onto the text layer, and there we go. Now I've just copied the same effects that are on the mirror on the text, but then maybe I want to alter some things. Maybe I want to take off the what do I want to take off? See what it looks like without the pattern or without the bevel emboss. Now it just has the pattern without the drop shadow. If I want it without the drop shadow, maybe I could always select one of these and throw them in the trash or alter them. Or I could always go in and alter the effects by double clicking on this one, and maybe I just want to have a different drop shadow, or maybe instead of drop shadow I want to have an outer glow on this one, so I can make some changes like that. Or an inner glow. Now it has an inner glow. And then I can adjust the size of the inner glow. It's kind of interesting. Maybe it does need a drop shadow now. No, maybe not. Maybe it needs a stroke on the outside. Not that big of a stroke. A thin outer stroke or something. That is dark. maybe not. So you can, well, it's kind of cool. So I could try that. Maybe with a drop shadow. That's a little bit darker. Opacity up. Size. Distance. So that's, you can always check things off and on and see that's without, that's with. What do I want? What do I want? I'll maybe make the stroke much more thin. See, without it, without the stroke, or with the stroke. I'll try with it. Say okay. And then we have the design. So now we want to make sure we save that design. Uh-oh, I didn't save till now. Shame on me. Make sure you save early. Do as I say, not as I do. So that, because you never know when the computer's going to crash. So this is going to be going to my folder for this class. My Wednesday folder here. Name, last name, first initial, Proj4 design as a Photoshop document showing the layers. Click save and okay. Now I'm gonna make a very quick mock-up, illustrative mock-up within Photoshop. So if you want to get started on that, you can. So I'm gonna go File, New, or Command N, Control N on Windows. Choose a print document, and I'm gonna name this my last name followed by my first initial dash Proj4 dash mockup as specified in your assignment. So you have the option to make your mockup in Photoshop or Illustrator as an illustrative mockup, or you can make your mockup photographic in Photoshop. So this is a demo on how to do the illustrative mockup in Photoshop using the shape tools. Okay, so I'm gonna use portrait size, leave all the defaults for the print settings, and background I'll leave white, and I'll click create. Then I'm gonna go to my shape tools. This time I'm gonna start with the rectangle tool, and I'm gonna be on shape, and I can choose, I'll choose a color, different color here, maybe yellow. Let's try yellow. And there is a stroke on this. Just gonna leave the stroke. I can always change it later if I don't like it. I'm dragging out the shape for the body of the shirt. Then I'm gonna drag out a little short rectangle for the sleeve. Then I'm going to rotate the sleeve. It should automatically, because we're working with shape layers, it should automatically show the bounding box while you're on the shape tool. So you can just hover outside of the bounding box handle and rotate. And then you can also use your path selection tool to move it, and you want to line up the corners. Then you can, while you're on your path selection tool, you can hold Option or Alt if you're on Windows and drag out a duplicate shape. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot something that I wanted to do. I forgot. Let me delete that duplicate shape. Yes, delete. I forgot to put it on the same layer. I could cut it and paste it, but I want to just show you the steps to do it properly. So I'm on this, I made this first rectangle. What do I need to do? What did I forget to do? I forgot to go to path operations and choose combine shapes. Now it's already there, so let's see. No, actually I need to be on my rectangle tool, And then now see how it's on new layer? That's all set to make a new layer. I don't want that. I want to switch to combine shapes. So I switch to combine shapes. Then my cursor will have a little plus and I can click and drag to draw out my sleeve shape. And it's adding to the same shape layer now. And I can rotate my sleeve at the angle that I want my sleeve to be at. I can switch to my path selection tool and move that. And then at this point, I can hold Option and Option drag out a duplicate, and it will add that duplicate to the same layer. Then let's see, can I hit commit? Let's see, can I go to Edit and yeah, Edit. And while this one rectangle is selected, then I can go to Transform Path and flip horizontal and line up the corners. You can zoom way in with Command plus and use your spacebar to toggle into the hand tool to just check that your corners look like they're lined up nicely. You can always fix the corners later after you combine all the shapes as well. Okay, next I need the neckline. So for the neckline, I want to choose my ellipse tool, and I'm going to, you would think that I could just go to subtract front shape. It used to be that way, but it will subtract an existing shape, so I don't want that. Let's go back to combine. Let's see if I use my path selection tool and deselect first, and then go to my ellipse tool, and then go to subtract front shape. And now let's see, am I on? It's not letting me, so I have to select something. So I have to select with my path select. Okay, let's see. Now it looks like it's selected. Let's go back to the ellipse and then go to subtract front shape. Good. Okay, now it's working. So now I see the minus. So I'm on my ellipse tool. Yeah, I had to click on my path selection tool so that all the shapes were selected. And then I could go back to my ellipse tool, and then I could go to subtract front shape, and now I can draw out an ellipse. But if I hold, I could still do it holding shift to make a perfect circle, and then release, and it makes a nice cutout neckline, which I can still scale holding shift, and I can use my path selection tool to move that around to get the neckline right. If it's off center, because it's added to the same shape layer, I can select it, hold down shift, select the body of the shirt, and then I can use my align panel options and choose align horizontal centers, and it jumps to the middle nicely. And I can click outside and look at it and say, is that the shirt shape I want? If it is, I can use my path selection tool to select the shape layer again, and I can go to my path operations and merge shape components. This operation will turn a live shape into a regular path. Continue. So now I've got my shirt shape, which I'm going to continue to talk about how to alter it. Ultimately, then you can go file, and what I'd like you to do to get your design on your mockup is to go file and then choose place linked. You can choose place linked this time. You have the option to do place embedded or place linked, but you can do place linked because you're going to be turning in both your design file and your mockup. So place linked is good because then you can work on your design more, and then it will update in your mockup. And then I can choose my design and place, and then it'll be in transform mode, and I can scale it to fit my shirt how I want it to fit. small or not so small. And check mark. So that's in a nutshell what we're working on, but I'm going to be showing some more finalization strategies and more on mock-ups next week, and starting you on your animation next week. So a lot to cover next week.